So I just got done watching Napoleon that came out last year. It's an Apple TV um, produced movie, funded movie, directed by Ridley Scott with Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby. Um, Overall, I like the movie. It's got flaws, um, but it does like a lot of good things as well. Um, the first thing that kind of like struck me was just like how different Vanessa Kirby is in this compared to something like Promising Young Woman, which she is phenomenal in Promising Young Woman. She's a lot more characterized in this. It didn't really work for me as much, and plus, I don't really know any of the specifics of like how Napoleon or Josephine acted like in real life, so I can't like really compare that to like their real life counterparts. Um, Historical accuracy is like not always like the biggest deal in movies, but to an extent, like when you're making like a an epic biopic like this, for like you have to have like some sense of like telling the story like as it's meant to be told. Um, I I have no idea how true this is. Like I'll put it that way. I don't know anything about Napoleon other than obviously he's he's known for being like this great conqueror, um, and general. Famously like losing at the Battle of Waterloo. I actually thought he died at the Battle of Waterloo. Like he doesn't die in the Battle of Waterloo in this. I should say spoiler alert for that, but again, like this is a story that's hundreds of years old at this point. Um, I thought Joaquin Phoenix was good in this. I think he's better in like other movies. Both is Afraid earlier this year. Like he was, you know, way more range of emotion and like way more, like altogether better performance. Joker came out. I want to say 2 years ago at this point now. Um, Again, I think he's like way better in Joker. Like it's not that I hated him in this. It's just like you can't hate Joaquin Phoenix in anything he does. It's just like this doesn't stand out as a top of list performance for me from him, anyways. Um, One of the things that did catch me off guard is just the production value of this movie. Uh, every single set piece just looks phenomenal. They always talk about how hard period pieces are to make because of like how much they cost to make, like the costume design and just the sets that you have to build for these. There are a couple that you can tell that like they're using a lot of green screen, namely like the first battle. Like you can tell like the forefront. Um, at least like they put. It seems like they put like a lot more work into it. I don't know if it's like actual like setting or if it's all done in a production stage. But like the castle walls looks like slightly worse, and then further than the castle walls like look almost like terrible, I'd say. Um, it didn't take me out of the movie by any means. It's just like something I noticed. Another thing I kind of noticed with, a couple times was just like how kind of weird the editing is. For example, there's this battles back in the day it's very hard to like tell what side was which side because it's based like this huge pile of people fighting, and you know there's been like tons of reports of people dying because they just get ran over by other soldiers, or they get killed by friendly fire. Close friendly fire, not even like friendly fire from like off in the distance from like the riflemen or the cannons or whatever. Like people will like literally stab the wrong people sometimes, like these old wars, and you really get that sense of just messiness. But when I say like poor editing, there's a part later on in the movie in a battle like where he's in Russia and he's like leading a charge, and the first shot they show is him charging from the left of the screen to the right of the screen, and then the following shot that they show is an army on the left side of the screen, which is definitely like not like his army, like because like the Russian army is like dressed like a lot differently, and then next thing you know, Napoleon is leading the charge from the right side of the screen, leading, going to the left. And it's just like, why would you do it like that? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. There's a few weird, other weird editing things that like happened throughout the movie, but like that was one of the most jarring ones. Another thing I wanted to bring up, as far as things I really like about this movie, is like the music. Like there's a couple music tracks like where, namely the intro one. I think it's called like Napoleon's something, because I looked up on Spotify after I watched the movie. But it's like just a little piano piece. I was like, oh, that sounds nice. And I actually thought it was like I can't think of how to pronounce his like last name, but it's like Michael Giacchino or something like that. He had all sorts of like soundtracks for like Star Wars and Marvel movies and stuff. But then it goes like into like more of like a traditional like epic music, not necessarily Hans Zimmer like level of like production, like over the top like epicness, but like a little bit more subdued. And I kind of liked it more than stuff that you'd traditionally see from like Hans Zimmer, or traditionally hear from Hans Zimmer, I should say. It's kind of weird, because like I don't know, I've read like a lot of like negative reviews of this movie, and like I kind of get them. Like people complain about the pacing. The only issue with the pacing that I've noticed while watching the movie was like in the second act, like there's like a lot of like plot development it's weirdly paced. And I say this because like the beginning of the movie, it kind of like feels like it's going pretty quickly as far as like an exposition dump goes, but they also have like that a battle like a meeting, like to kind of like for an attention grab. And then like once you get past like that act 2 exposition dump, or plot development dump I should say, like that almost like last hour, I felt like very, like I thought the pace was great on it. It's about like, I actually like went up to use the restroom, but like somewhere like around like the hour mark to like the 1:30 mark is like the main issue area that I noticed personally. Then like the kind of like last like 10-15 minutes, it kind of felt like they were trying to just give a satisfying resolution to the his story. It's kind of weird because like you don't really see many movies of this caliber being made anymore, like these like huge war epics, and like it's really weird because like Ridley Scott's done so many of them at this point. Just off the top of my head, Kingdom of Heaven and Gladiator, like 2 great movies. Speaking of Kingdom of Heaven, if you don't recall, like the theatrical release kind of came out with like middling reviews, and then he came out with a director's cut later on, and it's a great fucking movie. I don't mean to swear, but like it's like literally one of like easily top 100 movies of all time. Like the only weak part about that movie is Orlando Bloom. It's not that I hate Orlando Bloom, but he's just playing a very weird character in that, and it didn't work for me at all when you're sitting there, next to like all these other actors, outperforming him. Which, like for example, like I'm going off on a tangent, but I think this is related. But like Edward Norton is like in like, he's playing some king or something like that, and he's like wearing a mask the whole time. And like he's like on screen for 10 minutes, but like I cared more about Edward Norton's character in that movie than Orlando Bloom's character. And Orlando Bloom's on the screen for like an hour and a half of like a 2.5 hour long movie, and it's just like that should never happen. And this, at least, I care the most about, like Napoleon and Josephine. Overall, like I said, I enjoy this movie. I'm sure there's a director. I've heard rumblings of a director's cut happening. I really hope there's a director's cut happening. I think like there's some stuff that they like that got messed up in editing, and it's kind of weird that like a director's cut would happen like in this sense, and it's kind of the same thing with like Rebel Moon because these companies are like throwing tons of money towards these directors, like these like acclaimed directors, like in this case Ridley Scott, Netflix this case, Zack Snyder, and because they want to draw people to their service, and it's kind of weird that they're not like giving them like complete full creative control, and in both cases like I kind of like understand like both sides because this is like a 2.5 hour movie somewhere around there, and Rebel Moon is like slightly over 2 hours, but it's part one of part two, and like they said the director's cut's gonna be like 3 hours, so it's just like 3 hours for half of a movie is like crazy. So I get it. I don't know. More than anything, like this movie just it hyped me up for Gladiator 2, which growing up, Gladiator 2 was like one of my favorite. Or Gladiator was one of my favorite movies. I used to come home and do my homework and watch that movie like constantly. Like it's just it was almost to the point like where I'd sit there and like any given scene I could just like watch it and like recite the dialogue that they're saying, to the annoyance of my family and friends. But this gives me like a lot more hope for for him because there's been like a few Ridley Scott movies that like I've just and I can't even think off the top of my head. That's like how like unmemorable they've been. The past few movies that Ridley Scott's kind of done. And I almost like want to look this up, but actually I will look this up. So yeah, I looked this up, and like going back to Ridley Scott's previous movies, you have House of Gucci, which I thought was a mess. Quite frankly, a mess with like some decent performances in there. You have The Last Duel, which I thoroughly enjoyed, even though like the idea of it's kind of been done to death. Of there's two different sides of the same story. But like, last 10-minute duel was phenomenal. 15-20 minutes. I don't know how long the duel was. It felt like a long time. I'm trying to read my computer screen from here. Alien Covenant was not good. I mean, I don't know if I've even watched that. Like, I feel like I have watched that because I actually watched Prometheus and I really like Prometheus. So I think I probably did watch Alien Covenant and I probably just hated it because like I've watched, as far as I can remember, like all Alien movies except for Alien vs. Predator. No, I even watched Alien vs. Predator because of the trailer was phenomenal for that, like the Christmas trailer. And then you have like The Martian, which was obviously good, but that's like not along the same lines at all. But you have like Exodus, Gods and Kings, which again was freaking like not good. Like, so it's like you kind of have like him like in a slump with like some like out of genre like good films and like out of genre bad films, and like I guess Exodus Gods and Kings was really like the only bad like epic action movie he had, so it's like it's I don't know, it's kind of nice to see him like quote unquote return to form, and it's sucks because like being like relegated to like it's almost like being like relegated as like a typecasting as like an actor, but find what works for you, I guess, is like the silver lining in that. Anyways, I just watched the movie, like, I just got done watching the movie 20 minutes ago, but, like, currently in my mind, I'd probably give like a 3.5 out of 5, somewhere in there right now. Again, good acting, phenomenal production value, other than some weird CGI, some weird editing points, great epic action sequences, good score. Excited for Gladiator 2. Thanks for watching. Bye. Quick update, because when I was editing this, I noticed a couple things that I wanted to bring up. The first of which, I did talk about how like the epic action sequences like are good and everything. The one thing that I will say about those is like you look at something like the Battle of Winterfell from Game of Thrones. I think that does like what this movie does, but like kind of better because it kind of brings like a lot of stakes to like different characters. And I understand like the problem with that for this movie is that like Napoleon's a general, and like typically back then generals stood back from like the battle. They didn't want to get you know, they're more quote unquote valuable person, so they don't want to get like in the front lines. I want to make a comment too, because I noticed like in editing like how much cat hair is on my hoodie. My cat cuddles with me like when I'm watching movies. He'll just like sit like on my lap, like because you know he wants like the body warmth or whatever, and you know to be close to me. But I just figured I'd talk about that because it kind of shows up like a lot like in the video. Because I'm wearing a black hoodie and the cat's he has a ragdoll, so he's mostly white. Anyways, second, bye.